Good morning, lower sixth. So this is a copy of the first few lessons we've got in the lower sixth. Some of you might miss the lessons because you're joining business late, or some of you have forgotten. I'm not going to go through all the activities that we do. We'll do that in the classroom. I'll just mention them. But also there's a walkthrough of a 10 and a 20 mark essay, and you can go back and refer to this when we've set subsequent preps on 10 and 20 mark essays. But to start off with, just some of the resources. Obviously this is the textbook that you're going to be given. Take care of it. It's £55 worth of textbook, and if you lose it you'll need to buy another one. Lots of good case studies in there. You need to understand that this was published in 2014, maybe 15, so it's totally out of date, but it's the best textbook that's out there. Case studies are very good. 8 markers, 10 markers and 20 markers, they've all slightly changed. Well, that's why you have teachers to help you understand the difference between that and what's happening nowadays. So you will have been given the scheme of work. You'll notice this middle column here, which is basically a checklist. Well, if you've got up-to-date notes and you understand how to answer basic exam questions and you're confident, well, give it a nice tick. Yeah. If not, then go back in, come to clinic, ask for more help. You need to understand that business is a spiral curriculum, so we're going to constantly go back and revisit things. Now, 2.1 and 2.2 are our first units we're going to be doing, and at the same time with your Theme 1 teacher, you're also going to be doing forms of business and sources and business objectives, So they sort of work in tandem at the same time, and we will constantly come back to it. So sources of finance are very important for lots of obvious reasons, but don't think you're just going to revise these units in isolation. They all come together. We're running businesses here. You're going to be effectively a business consultant when you're writing essays. You're going to recommend strategies to businesses. You're not just going to focus on one theory, are you? So you might benefit from understanding the rest of the curriculum, especially when you do 12 and 20 mark essays. Okay, so use this checklist and hopefully it will all be ticks. And if it's not, you come to clinic and you ask for help. Peer mentoring, buddy up with your mates, do your prep with your mates. That's absolutely fine as well, as long as it's your original work that you submit, because we will be checking it. You also need to keep up to date with current affairs. This is a very current subject, which is one of the joys of teaching it. You're going to have up-to-date case studies in the classroom. You're going to tell me what you're interested in, and where possible, I will bring that into the classroom for you. The Times is really good. Times subscription for students, I think, is about £10 per year for the first 3 years of you subscribing, and there'll be loads of stuff up there. Also, pop onto Dobby's site. This is Dobby's site. And in the recommended reading list here, there's lots of books, there's websites. So I subscribe to McKinsey's newsletter. McKinsey are a global consultancy company. Trust me, if you're interested in something, they've written some research on it. Okay, so there's lots of free stuff out there. The Times, however, is £9.99 a year. Yeah, that's probably what you're spending on a pizza at the weekend. So it's worth spending it on the Times. So what we have here on Dobby's site is loads of links. There's nothing selling anything here to you, which is very important. But in here, you've got every single key term for the entire course. You should be doing your own notes. But what you could do is you could download the notes, for example, for 2.1.1 and 2, and you could cross-reference them. Make sure your notes are complete. So the notes that I've put up there for you also list all the pros and cons, and where at all possible give you real UK business examples as well. Also, some of the definitions in this textbook are a little bit wishy-washy. Not many, it's a very good textbook. For instance, social enterprise, which you'll do in forms of business, is wrong in the textbook. And actually, if you look in Edexcel's spec, you'll see that it doesn't really tell you what a social enterprise is. So we've had questions on social enterprise before. There's been guidance notes that have come out since. And there's lots of correct definitions on there. But remember, this textbook was printed in 2014 or 15. Okay, so in the recommended reading is lots of links to revision sites. You can see that I've gone on to the past paper section here and all the course specifications on there as well. Okay, there's loads of information on there, and you'll notice that this bit here, download every past paper question. You are going to need to make sure that you can answer questions on every single section. We will cover this extensively in and out of the classroom. Also, you should maybe go and speak to, I don't know, Tom Bicknell and just ask him if you can help out. Write an article for Concord and Victory. You can join me with Tom interviewing people for the student newspaper. So there's lots of things that you can do to broaden your interest, get some work experience. Most importantly, be interested. The students that get the most out of business are the ones that are genuinely interested in a business. The ones that contextualise the best in their essays will get the best marks. It won't be, in the final exam, it won't be that you don't understand the theory. You're going to understand the theory. And hopefully there's no gaps. And if there's only a couple, hopefully they don't test you on them. What will cost you your marks is if you're not contextualising properly. Okay, so lots of knowledge-based answers, which you'll see in the examiner reports when we go through them. They know the theory, they've done the revision, they just don't contextualise it. And they end up with a C grade or a D grade or worse. So what you need to do is be interested, and if you're interested, then you'll be able to contextualise. And if you don't understand, for example, I don't know, peer-to-peer funding, come and talk to me and I will talk to you about what you're interested in and see if I can link it into something that you understand. And then by the end of that conversation, you'll understand peer-to-peer funding. This is the first 2 units, which we tend to teach in tandem. And I'm not going to go through all the bullet points. You can read them as well as anyone else. And we're going to move on. Okay, so hopefully that intro was useful. So in class, we will go through all of these definitions. Okay, so I'm going to put them up quickly. But I've also listed the unit that you will be doing first with your Theme 1 teacher. Now you'll notice it's 1.5.3 and 4. Okay, so you know there is a 1.1.1 at the markets, but we teach these 2 units first for a reason. Now this unit, what you'll find is when we talk about the hooks in the question, and I'll explain what a hook is, but when we talk about the hook in the question, so for example the aims and objectives of a company, it could be that they are a business startup and they've just started out and they've got limited cash and they want to survive, and they also want to grow their business. Okay, it might be that they're not focused on profits at the moment, even though they do need profits to be able to survive. So you've got to think about business objectives first. When we talk about sources of finance, which is obviously what we're going on to, well, when you're talking about stock market flotations, we're talking about selling shares on the stock market, maybe moving from a limited company to a PLC, and that initial public offering, that IPO, is a massive source of finance, hopefully. And the great thing is you never have to pay it back, so there's no interest rates on it. Okay, so these units work in tandem, and it's really important that you understand both sides of the course as we go through. The best students will be able to understand that they're studying business. The weak students will only study unit by unit. Okay, so if we're looking at these business objectives at the top, how does it link in? Well, obviously we need to raise finance. Profit maximization, you might be able to invest in other opportunities. So we might want funding to go into a new market, for example, open up a new product line, extend the existing product line. Apple release a phone every 2 years, and then a sort of an SE update in the middle of that to maximize those sales, to extend the product life cycle. You'll learn about product life cycles a bit later in theme 1. Now, we obviously need to raise finance to fund things. So if I want to maximize the amount of stuff I'm going to sell, well, I need to fund my promotions. I need a marketing department or money to pay an agency. I need to print leaflets. Even just a leaflet costs money. Same sort of thing for all of these things. Cost efficiencies might be investing in technology. So in the short term, it costs me a lot of money. But if I can replace people with robots, robots tend to be more efficient in lots of ways, depending on the task. They don't get pregnant, they don't go on strike, and they don't want holidays or pay rises. Employee welfare, well, that might cost money. So one of my benefits of work is I get discount in certain stores, I get healthcare, so those sorts of things all cost my employer money, and hopefully I'm a happier, healthier teacher because of it. Then we can think about customer satisfaction. Well, what do we do about that? Well, speaking to customers, listening to customers costs money. It might lead to more sales down the road, but in the short term, that extra customer contact will cost money. Where is the money coming from? Is it coming from internal sources of finance, so from my profits that I've not spent on other things or given to my shareholders, or is it coming from me borrowing money, or people giving me money from outside of the company? Social objectives, well, you'll learn lots about social enterprises and charities in your theme 1.5.4. So when we think about forms of business, well, we've got different money that we are going to need. Now, things like personal savings are obviously going to come into it when you're a very small company. It could be one of you decides to, I don't know, set up your own Depop shop or something, and you need to go on to Depop and you need some stock because you've just sold all your own clothes. You need personal savings to possibly fund buying some clothes. Okay, so you're a small company, but where's the money coming from? Because you're a small company, maybe banks won't loan you the money. Maybe you're too high a risk. Maybe you don't want to take on any debt because it's sort of a hobby business that you're hoping will grow into a proper business in the future. Lots of stuff in there. You can read that as well as me. And then I mentioned about stock market flotation and the benefits of it. So moving on, the answers are not coming up for this. So those of you that are watching this video because you missed my lesson, then you pause it, take a screenshot, dump it into your notes, and go and research the key terms. So write the key terms in here. As it says at the top, I want at least 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages for each of these. Okay. Now, it's really important that you get your head round writing advantages and disadvantages for everything, because that's how we write essays. Your notes must be clearly structured to highlight key terms and advantages and disadvantages for everything. Okay, if you don't have that in your notes are not complete. Go very careful, because I know lots of you will use OneNote and you'll just type every word that comes out of my mouth or someone else's mouth in the classroom. It's a total waste of time. Think about writing very, very concise notes. Go and have a look at the examples I've put on Dobby's site for you. They're relatively detailed, but they're in a structure that I will be able to revise from. If your notes are not fit for revision, just don't write them, and maybe use the revision guide and add scribble notes in the margins. I'll talk to you about this in class. Okay, pause the screen, same sort of thing, external sources of finance. Go away, define the key terms, and put your advantages and disadvantages in there. Moving on. Hopefully you knew there was a second slide that came up then, by the way. Okay, so this is a past paper question, and I've just put some pictures from VisionSpring's website. Lovely charity, actually. It's an old case study. Now, one of the benefits of using past paper questions, and we won't always use past paper questions, but one of the big benefits is you can see the size of the case studies. You can see that the examiners take a lot of time in stripping all the crap out. And that means if it's in the case study, you should be able to probably use it. Okay, so we're looking at this. This is a case study that I believe was used for 2 questions, and all of this graphic here was not in the exam paper for obvious reasons, even though this could be part of a data extract if it was in the paper, but it wasn't because I lifted this in preparation for this lesson. So we can see that we've got an introduction to VisionSpring, and my question in the class is this internal or external sources of finance? Pause the video, read the case study. Excuse me. So hopefully that's long enough. So we're looking through this. We've got social enterprise founded, provides affordable stuff in developing countries such as India, and we're not seeing anything about sources of finance down here at the moment. And then it tells us a bit more about their chain of profitability. Okay, well, so as every step of the chain is profitable, okay, so we've got every is profitable. Now, a source of finance that you've just done research for is retained profits. The business model is sustainable. Okay, well, if it is sustainable, why would I want external sources of finance? Well, maybe it's sustainable at its current size, but to help more people gain access to more glasses, maybe I want to go and borrow some money, and then I'll be able to help more people quicker. One of the disadvantages of retained profits is it might be slower growth. They might be missing an opportunity here. Remember, the social enterprise wants to help people and as many people as possible. So if we're looking down here, the current growth strategy is to reinvest its profits. Okay, internal or external? Well, clearly it's internal, to expand this, but it's also considering loans. Okay, now there we're then thinking, where do loans come from? Well, loans could come from banks. Loans could come from not so much, maybe a business angel if it was a smaller loan, and the benefit of that is it comes with expertise. It could be a venture capitalist. Maybe they will normally want a share of your business, though, both of those. But then again, the business angel might just be interested in the charity and is willing to donate a bit of money. It's an external donation then, isn't it? If it comes with all the expertise of the business angel, even better. One such is ITC, a tobacco company who supplies the majority of village shops. Okay, so one of the sources of finance are other companies, but they're going to borrow the money from the tobacco company. Now, I'm thinking this social enterprise is very ethical, and last time I checked, tobacco will probably kill you. So maybe not the most ethical of companies. So maybe, yes, they can get loans from this company, and the benefit is they're in all the village shops, which is great because you've already got an established supply chain, and we can pop in and start selling our glasses. But if you think about it, this could really damage the reputation of this ethical company. It might be one of those partnerships that they're willing to tolerate for the greater good, but it's something to be interested in. Now, the question that came up was this one. So assess VisionSpring's decision. Okay, so we need to assess their decision to finance its growth using retained profits. Okay, so when we're talking about we're assessing this decision to, so they are doing it already. So you cannot answer this overall, I recommend. Yeah, so it's really important that we read the question properly, and we see this often. I was marking paper 3 this year, and basically there was some people that just don't answer the question when they get to the conclusion. So my advice is write your answer, then pause at the conclusion, go and reread the question quickly, and at least decide how to answer the question directly. So assessing the decision, overall the decision was good, overall the decision was bad. Okay, one of those is going to be the answer, isn't it? to finance its growth. Yep, so this is what I would call the hook. Yep. Now, with the hook, and this is my plan, by the way, with the hook, it needs to be in context. So the growth could be more villages in India. The growth could be more glasses, okay, helping the social enterprise achieve its goals. We also need to look for the knowledge. The knowledge is clearly retained profits. Now, we will start our answer with a definition, hopefully in context, but if you can't think of it in context, as in to do with VisionSpring or stuff from the case study, then a definition is fine. Always start with a definition, because then at least you're answering the question. A common mistake of students is they get cocky, and what they do is they'll just ramble through, and they sort of know, as long as they demonstrate an understanding of it, which is what the spec says, then they're going to get the marks. Well, if they don't demonstrate an understanding of it, because they've missed it, because they've waffled or they've gone off on another direction, then you're going to get 0 marks. Now, with a case study like VisionSpring, you're probably going to use the case study properly. But if this was a case study on McDonald's, believe you me, there are a number of people that wouldn't bother reading the case study because they are cocky. Okay? Even if it's on McDonald's, make sure you read the case study, okay? So, here's our question again. Just a quick one. So, we are the decision for their growth, okay? That's an arrow, believe it or not. And then our definition is there. Now, if you can't spend that much time on planning an answer, then you shouldn't be studying the A-level. At least if you've got growth with hook next to it, you can write hook as a word if you want to. At least you know that that comes at the end of every chain of argument. Okay, we're going to spend an entire lesson on this question. This is just a quick recap. So the structure is going to be, we're going to do a quick plan. That's a quick plan. And please don't tell me that you don't have enough time to plan, okay? Because that means you don't have enough time to get an A. So identify the K, right? We've done that. Identify the hook, hopefully in context, and we've got growth there, and we know that it's going to be glasses, or it might be in different villages in India, okay? Yep, so we understand from the case study we've got India up there. We're then going to think about the structure. Now, this is a 10 marker. Now, there are 2 different ways that we might write this, depending on the question. So I'm going to go through the structure of this 10 marker, and it's 2 simple P paragraphs, one in favour of the decision, one against the decision, really saying that something else might be better, and then answering the question, and then justifying my answer. And I'll talk about the structure of justification when we get there. It's very important that you understand that everything needs to be contextualised, including the conclusion. The standards say contextualised throughout, and throughout is throughout. Throughout is not just in 2 paragraphs and then not bothering in your conclusion. We're going to think about the evidence for this. Well, the evidence that we might use in favour is we understand that it is sustainable. Okay, so this could be my plus evidence as a plus. And then it could be that you've obviously got these guys down the bottom. They're thinking about a loan. We're not just going to introduce another form of finance because the case study is generous. It's giving it to us. So why would I start just babbling on about all the different sources of finance? Believe you me, this is what students do, is they remember the textbook, they throw it on a page and they think it sounds technical and they wonder why they end up on a C grade. Okay? So remember, this is a loan from a tobacco company. That's meant to be an arrow. And there we go. So I've got my negative evidence, I've got my positive evidence, and I'm ready to write, really. So we're going to define retained profits. We're going to do a P paragraph in favour, a P paragraph against. We're going to answer the question, yeah, as in I'm going to go back and reword the question slightly just to directly answer it, and I'm going to justify. And in this case, I think we could consider the alternative, which I'll go through with the example. So we're going to define our key term, yeah, very textbook. Now you'll notice up here, I thought VisionSpring was quite a long name, and I'm lazy. I like shortcuts. So I'm going to call it VS from now on. You'll notice I've put it in brackets. I'm going to call it VS throughout the rest of the answer to save myself a bit of time. Okay, so they're a social enterprise, keeps within the business after covering all of its expenses. Okay, so it's talking about that net income, and you'll use financial terms in your essays, and that is net income. So that will be your income after expenses. And here we go. Here's our first paragraph. So using retained profits to fund growth is a good decision. We're directly answering the question. VS is profitable as it makes £1 profit, 100% markup, for every pair of glasses it sells. You'll understand what markup is when we get to the unit. This is important because not using loans will lead to not paying any interest, which results in reduced costs and allows them to make and deliver more glasses. Now remember, the hook in the question is growth. Yeah, that's a H. But we're going to do growth in context with the case study, and more glasses is context. Now you'll notice that I've underlined because leading to, resulting in. We need at least 3 chains of argument in this 10 marker, and it could be leading to, leading to, leading to. Yeah, I don't care what the words are. You need to underline your connectives. Okay, at this stage, I want you to know that you're actually using them, and writing essays is not difficult. It's a relatively easy formula. Just answer the question in context and make sure there's chains of argument. If you suddenly jumped from £1 profit to more glasses, we would call that an incomplete chain of argument, and you would go down to level 2 in the marking grid, and I'll explain what that is in a second. So you need to make sure we've got these chains of argument, okay? And this is the same in all questions except for the 4 markers, and we'll obviously cover the 4 markers in class. However, I like however because it sort of indicates to me or the examiner, here's my counter argument, hold tight, get ready, this is going to be good. You'll also notice that up here, quotation marks. Okay, now you're not going to trick the examiner by putting quotation marks around stuff, but they are looking for evidence from the case study. More importantly, if you get in the habit of putting quotation marks around case study evidence, you will remember to use it. Because if you don't use it, you're going to go down to level 2 and you're going to get, I don't know, 4 out of 10. So you've got to contextualise your answers. However, using loans, yeah, so obviously that's from the case study. From established businesses in developing countries, it might be better to than retained profits. Yeah, remember, retained profits good, retained profits not so good. This is because ITC might have access to large amounts of money. They're a tobacco company. I think that's pretty on point. Than VS's retained profits. Okay, they're a social enterprise. They're growing only on their profits. And they might also have a better understanding of the Indian market. Okay, now I've used the word might there. They might not. If I said they definitely, and this is where we have to have a brief discussion about these throwaway terms that sometimes A-level students use. If it's definite, this will definitely result in, or you leap to, I don't know, bankruptcy or death, you're going to come into the territory of something called an assertion. It's where you assert an argument. You just jump to it without explaining. Now, it might have a better understanding of the Indian market. Well, when they're in the majority of village shops, actually, I think that's quite a nice might. If it was definitely, then you put a couple too many definites in an answer, we're going to put you down to level 2. You're going to get used to this. This might lead to VS spending its funding more effectively because of the knowledge of the tobacco company, resulting in distributing more glasses via village shops. So this is obviously application. Application is using case study evidence, and there's another form which we'll talk about later. And remember, the hook in the question is growth. More glasses is growth. It's a lot easier than you just saying growth, by the way. If you just mention growth and products and customers, it's not contextualized. We want to talk about glasses and tobacco companies and village shops. Okay? You're a business consultant. You need to make sure you contextualize everything. We then go back and quickly read the question. We identify that we are assessing the decision linked to the growth, and we've got to make sure that we've done that, obviously, which we've had because that's up here. Overall, using retained profit is a good decision to fund VS's growth. There you go. No waffle, no trying to impress the examiner that you've had the Economist for breakfast. Just plain English and directly answer the question, and then stick your justification on a separate line. This is because it allows them to grow and to adhere to their ethical standards compared to the loan from ITC, a tobacco company, which might have different aims and ethics as it sells carcinogenic products. I just threw a bit of carcinogenic products in there because I'm not a big fan of smoking, and it'll kill you, kids. So don't do it. So there you go. So we've got some context. They're a tobacco company. Yes, they might have more money, but actually, let's face it, why would I want to borrow money from them when I'm trying to help people? Yeah. We don't want the tobacco company to sell more cigarettes because of our glasses, for example. So if we look at the mark scheme, and you'll either love or loathe this, but we are aiming for level 4. If you get level 4 in all of your answers and you get 100% on those 4 markers, you're going to get yourself an A, maybe an A star in the final exam. So we're not aiming for perfection, we're aiming for level 4. And if you aim for perfection, you might write too much, is my main point with that. I'd love you all to get full marks, but if you try to over-perfect and just add a bit more, you need to write these things in 1.2 minutes per mark, and that includes planning. Okay? Up the top here, you'll see there's 2 different structures that we might use for 10 markers, and this assess the decision or the likely impact one I got up here, but this one's sort of the decision. Good decision, not so good. Answer the question, justify, a nice short punchy answer. If it was something like assess the benefits or the disadvantages or the limitations, we see this quite often in some 10 markers. Well, one limitation is, however, it might be a positive. Another limitation is, however, it might be a positive. And then answer the question, justify. Now, the reason we do that is because we need to make sure that our answers are balanced. Answer is balanced. Okay? Very important that we understand that there needs to be that balance, or we can't get to level 4. Okay, you'll notice we've got coherent logical chains of reasoning. That's our 3 chains. And up here, if there's one maybe missing, then you're going to go to level 3. But if they're incomplete because you've just jumped to TikTok style answers, everything ended in profits and sales, then actually you're going to go to level 2, and we don't want 4 out of 10. Okay, we'll talk about these standards a lot more as we go through the course. So pause the video, go and get yourself a coffee, hot chocolate, water, and we'll go on and think about a little bit of Deliveroo. This is a 2023 past paper question, and this will talk about a different source of finance. Pause the video, read the case study. Believe it or not, this is the entire case study, and identify external or internal sources of finance. Hopefully you pause the video. So Deliveroo is a UK-based food delivery business which operates in 500 towns and 13 different countries. Okay, most of its workforce are self-employed and deliver food using their own bicycles or mopeds. Okay, so increasing sales. So we can see the sales are 72% up, but they've made a loss of 232 million. The loss was 16% higher than that. Now, when we're looking at numerical trends, sometimes it's nice to think, however, if this continues into the future, they might lose even more money. So we could think about doing a simple calculation. Look for an opportunity to do a calculation. I've not done one in the example because this is your first month of studying Business A level. So we'll talk about that as we go through the course. So they want to expand in the UK. Okay, so they want to expand in the UK. They're already in 500 towns. Oh, that was meant to be a circle, but never mind. Different sources, methods, fund its growth. Okay, so to fund its planned growth, they are considering either using a stock market flotation or to take a bank loan. So this is the question, by the way. So when I'm planning, I do option 1 and I'll do option 2 because we're doing a 20-mark question now. So that's meant to be a 2. Evaluate these 2 options and recommend which one, you can't have both, Deliveroo should use to fund its planned growth. Okay, it wants to grow in the UK. It's already in 500 towns. I think they want to go to more than 500 towns. And we need to think about how they can fund it. Okay, it's not going to be through retained profits. That's not part of the question. Another reason is they haven't got any profits because they're losing hundreds of millions of pounds each year. Okay, so moving on, there's the case study and another picture of that lovely food. And we're thinking about a 20-mark structure here. So our quick plan would be identify the K, the hook in the question, which we talked about in the 10-marker, identify the structure, which we'll talk about, and identify the evidence from the case study to support your answers. We will answer this in different sections. We're going to focus on options. Now, as we get more experience with this, we might bring in comparisons between the 2 options in our paragraphs for each option. But at the moment, I want you to focus on 3 chains of argument. And you will hear that you need 5, by the way. But for now, just focus on 3. Let's get you used to doing that naturally. And then 2 options, answer the question, justify, and that's the end of the question. So really, you're writing the equivalent of 2 10-markers in some ways. 2 times 10 is 20 last time I checked, so you can get your head around why we would do that. We'd start off with a definition of option 1, which is stock market flotation. Click. We're going to think about the P paragraphs in favour and against, and we're then going to go on to option 2 and do the same thing. Define the bank loan in favour, against, and then we're going to answer the question. So we go back to the question and double check what it says, and we can plan this one in a second, and then we can justify our answer, and we're considering the alternative here. Now, in lots of ways, the 10-marker, we were given the alternative in the case study. So we had the loan in there from ITC, and we've also obviously had the retained profits. Now, you don't always see that in the 10 markers. You have to sometimes introduce your alternative. But with 20 markers, you're always given the alternative because they give you 2 options. Okay? So you will basically badmouth the competition. You're going to justify your answer by saying why the other option is not as good. And you're going to do it in context with maybe their current situation and also the future. The chief examiner does like a little bit of short term versus long term, but you just saying those terms are not going to get you the marks. Really considering these in context is what's going to get you the marks. Okay, so here is the question. So our question is here. And to fund its growth, Deliveroo Limited could either use a stock market flotation, 1, or a bank loan, 2. That's a 2. Evaluate these 2 options and recommend which one Deliveroo should choose to fund its planned growth. So this is our hook. And remember, we know that they are growing, yeah? So to add a further 50, that's meant to circle, lovely pen, so add another 50 towns. So we're talking about opening new branches, okay? So we'll see when we get to the conclusion if the conclusion is answered it correctly or if it just uses generic terms. So I've put the structure here for you. You wouldn't write the structure down, but you would write, in my opinion, you should write option 1, and then obviously when you get past option 1, write option 2. It just helps you to get on that autopilot mode. Okay, so we're going to start off by defining stock market flotation, and again, you wouldn't write define stock market flotation. You just write the definition for stock market flotation. Stock market flotation is if Deliveroo Limited, yeah, and you understand the difference of that by now, hopefully, because you've done the forms of business question unit, sells shares publicly on the stock market for the first time. Okay, so this for the first time is quite important for stock market flotation. It's not just selling shares on the stock market. Then you can see we've got at least 3 chains of argument in here. This is important because it could raise excuse me, large sums of capital from new shareholders who may be encouraged to invest due to the potential profits. So they're not making profits now, okay, potential profits for the future. From Deliveroo's plans to expand into new markets such as Taiwan, okay, such as Taiwan, isn't the 50 stores, 50 towns, sorry, that they're thinking about, but this might be one of the reasons behind people buying shares. Okay, so it's absolutely relevant for this to be in there at the moment. This would lead to Deliveroo avoiding additional fixed costs, yeah, of paying interest on bank loans. Now, this paragraph's really nice because it's actually starting to do a comparison between the other option and obviously doing an IPO, therefore preventing an even greater loss than the 232 million loss in 2018. Okay, we know their losses are getting higher. They're going to have pressure on them to start making profits in the future, but Deliveroo is not focused on profitability. Now, the weak students will go sales and profits. Well, this company is talking about growth, market growth. They want to get loads and loads of loyal customers. Amazon, when they first went into India, did not plan to make any profits for the first 5 years. All they cared about was new customers, repeat purchases, and secure delivery. That's all they cared about. Okay, the profits came later. However, remember, this is a nice way to start our counter argument. Stock market flotation will lead to a dilution of the existing shareholders' percentage ownership of the business at flotation. You've got to sell a percentage of the business. We know that. Thus, you'll notice now I'm not using because leading to, therefore resulting in. I've now decided to use different connectives, but as long as I understand their connectives, I can underline them. Hopefully, I've put them in bold for you here. Thus, issuing more share capital through the stock exchange could disadvantage existing shareholders in the long run. That's because if Deliveroo is worth £1 million now and £100 million in the future, these shareholders might be missing out on that increase in value. For example, as another connective for you, if the share price dropped lower, I should say, but never mind, if the 72% increase in sales slowed, okay, so that if they're not using this money correctly, then maybe they don't grow the business. Sorry for the typo. Option 2, we will define the bank loan. Again, we wouldn't write this in our answer. It's just so you understand the structure. Alternatively, Deliveroo could borrow from a bank in the form of an interest-bearing loan. Okay, so not just a loan from a bank. Interest-bearing sort of gives us our argument, doesn't it? This could lead to raising large sums of capital for expansion, and considering the sales growth of 72%, the bank may be willing to lend the large sum of money. The bank may regard Deliveroo to be low risk in the long term because of the planned expansion. Okay, we've got planned expansion in the case study, so that's context. As a result, it may give Deliveroo a lower rate of interest on the loan, which may prevent a significant increase in the company's fixed costs. Full stop if we were actually doing English. Okay, Now, what you'll notice so far is we've not got any quotations. We are using some of this. We've got some evidence in there, which is a bit obvious. We've got an interpretation of evidence in this paragraph, but we're not seeing any quotation marks. Okay, it doesn't make it a bad answer, but you need to put quotation marks around your case study evidence, or some of you will forget to use it. P negative, however, the bank may be nervous about the large losses of. So I've not just said large losses, I've used the case study. Okay, now if I wanted to make this even better, I could have talked about the 16% higher, yeah, instead of just repeating the 232 million. Okay, but it's still context, which is obviously here, which have increased by 16%. Therefore, the bank may make collateral demands, they might ask for guarantees, or offer higher rates of interest. This may make bank loans financially unattractive to Deliveroo. Okay, so we've already said up here about how it would add to fixed costs, so there's no point in repeating it. We then go back to the question and we decide how we're going to directly answer the question. And we know that it says which one. Overall, I recommend that Deliveroo use a stock market flotation. Okay, it's asking us to recommend one. I'm going to directly recommend one. Full stop. Next line, I'm going to justify it. I'm going to badmouth the alternative. I chose this source of finance because Deliveroo seemed to be focused on long-term growth and not short-term profitability. Deliveroo's sales grew by 72% as it expanded into new markets and acquired new customers in more than 500 towns. Loans would add to the short-term costs, whereas selling shares on the stock market do not have to be paid back and could give Deliveroo cash reserves to help them through to more profitable times. Okay, now the adding to your costs is a repeat of the argument up the top, and you've had the marks for it already, so you're not going to get them again. However, the not having to pay it back is a slightly different answer. It's not a huge different argument, but it adds value, and the examiners are looking for something extra. Now, if I was to pick holes in this answer, because it's not perfect, I would be looking for quotation marks around evidence, which is not essential, but my advice to you. And also, we've not directly linked to their growth targets. So it could be that opening another 50 in a further 50 towns would help increase the revenue even further. So we could improve that. It's not a disaster. It does answer the question, by the way. We've got chains of argument. It is balanced. Let's go and have a look at this marking standards and see how that works out for us. So here's our answer. Again, we're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming for level 4. And is it accurate and thorough knowledge and understanding supported throughout? Okay. Now you've got to get used to this word throughout. Throughout is every paragraph and the conclusion. Okay, so we know that this is all contextualized. We've got loads of evidence in there, even though it could be better. And in the justification, we've got 72%, we've got 500 towns, we've got an interpretation of them focused on growth and not short-term profitability. It's obvious they're not focused on short-term profitability, or they wouldn't be having those losses. So actually, it is throughout. Does it talk about their behaviour? Well, definitely in that justification as well, actually. And it is talking about shareholders possibly missing out. That's possible shareholder behaviour as well. Well-developed and logical chains of argument. Now, this is where we will get you used. That's meant to be a 5, believe it or not. Just imagine that's a 5. We will want you to have 5 chains of argument in each of these. But to get to level 4, if you do 3 well-contextualised chains of argument and you answer the question in context, you're going to get to level 4 every single time. And that is what you need to focus on. It's really important that you focus on getting to level 4. Okay, once you get more experience with the examination technique, you might bring in other theories that will help you get to that 5 chains of argument. Okay, so we're going to say we've not achieved that because we've not got to 5, but we have got our 3, which is in level 3. So we've got this one. This pen's not working very well today. And do we use quantitative and qualitative information? Yes. I could have done a bit of maths if I was being a greedy A-star student. I might do, however, if this profitability in the future, well, I don't think it was needed really. I think we used that well and that well. A full awareness of validity and significance of competing arguments. Well, this is where our justification comes in. This is where we're bad-mouthing the competition in some ways. Okay, I've chosen this one because, and then you explained it in context. That's what the examiners are looking for with a justification, not just a repeat of an argument that you've already had the marks for. Okay, so I would say that we have had that awareness of these competing arguments. We've got comparisons throughout. That's why we have pros and cons. We've made an overall judgment. Yeah, well, there's the judgment, and then we've justified it to do with obviously the solution, which is to have an IPO. Okay, this is the level 4 answer. It may not be perfect, but it's level 4, depending on the mood of your examiner, depends where they're going to put it. I would probably give this, I don't know, 17. Yeah, you can decide once you learn how to mark, which will be soon. Here endeth the presentation. A very long video, but remember, this is for those that have missed the lessons, and this helps you to catch up on some very, very important lessons. Hopefully that's of some use, and I look forward to doing loads of essays with you in the future. Have a lovely day.